anytime
Yes.
though, right? All right.
All right, you guys should see a mental health dancing. Chat. I want the chat. No, I want the chat. Pardon us as we have some minor technical difficulties and learn how to speak English too. While we're here, I'm going to gather and see. You guys should be looking at the disclaimer page.
We should be too?
No.
No.
No. Not unless. Mandy, do you want to open it? The PowerPoint and open it on Zoom? I think I can force you to be a sharing participant. If she does that? Oh, well then never mind. Okay. So you
on the same page.
Yeah, Mandy, I got you. You want to request? You know how to do that, Mandy Moo.
Did you send it to me?
It was in the big Google Drive. Well, while my team is getting set up, I'll read the disclaimer. This is not a diagnostic class. If you feel like you need one, reach out to one of us. If this is a safe space, this is your journey and no one else's. Please take this time to share just your journey. If you are triggered for any reason, please feel free to reach out to one of our mods. If you are taken down for any reason, a mod will reach out to you. This is a mental health guide to well-being, not to be used for diagnosis. All right, Mandy, do you have that open? You can't find it? You got really quiet too.
Send it to me again. I apologize.
Okay.
I had it saved in a special file and I'm not finding it.
It's okay. The Google Drive was big and deep. And Sean dumped a bunch in there this morning.
Okay.
I'm not even finding it anymore. Did we pull it out, Sean, when you put it onto the present?
No, I just downloaded it.
No, it's got all three of the other ones. Lord have mercy. No, Mandy, I cannot share you with you because my phone doesn't have it. Sean's going to try to go get it. Well, while we sit here, it should be that one right there. Yeah, just click on that one. Yeah. And then send it to hyphen Sherry said Sherry Meta Services. Yeah, send it to her. Yeah. She's gonna probably be the one with the biggest internet to download it. Sherry Sedler, I just tasked you with this.
What do you want me to do with it?
When you open it, and then I'm gonna have you request to become host.
Okay.
And then we're gonna give you host so that you can play that. And it's just in our Zoom, so nobody else in the audience will see it. All right. Sherry, whenever you're ready to take host, it'll pop up. I'm going to keep moving us forward.
Okay.
All right. Sean, next one. So today is Mental Health Action Day 2022. The focus of today is connection, community, back to basics, and tools. As of December 7th, 2021, the national standards had declared a youth crisis in mental health because of the effects of COVID. So we're going to take a bit and introduce ourselves. I am Kate Young. I'm from AMP Education. I've been working in mental health for a little over 15 years now. Started with child development. I'm going to hand this over to Danielle Peterson, who's going to introduce herself.
I am Danielle Peterson. I am a school counselor currently who works with our at Promise returning high school, and I have been working with students in our education system for about 13 years.
Okay, and then next is Dr. Sherry Center.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sherry Center. I have done a variety of things. At the moment, I have a consulting company called Dr. Sherry Center LLC. We work as well as children with learning differences. And I also, at the moment, are working with children learning. And I specialize in children that really have some through school age.
And next we have Dr. Sherry Sedler.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Sedler. I've worked with youth for over 25 years now in a variety of schools in a rural school setting. And through those experiences, got a really incredible lens of trauma work. And so then pursued my doctoral practice. I do consulting services with the school for compassion fatigue, helping staff. And then I also am now working with education, really promoting mental health and wellness. So thanks for all you're doing.
Well, next we have Dre.
Hey, how's it going, y'all? So my name is Dre, and I'm a local hip hop artist and activist for the city of South Lake Tahoe. I do a lot of work in my community with students and with the mayor and city council to try to just bring us together and bring awareness to community and how to just be creative artistically as well. So education is one of the sponsors that we have as far as like uniting our community. So her and I both have some history with Tahoe, and I'm also happy to just be here and kind of like bring some awareness to mental health issues that a lot of us men are facing. And thank you for having me.
All right, and then next is Jessica Whitmer.
Hi guys, I'm Jessica Whitmore, and I am the founder of the Self-Love Club on Facebook. It's a group on Facebook where I talk a lot about my journey with mental health, more or less to normalize things, to let them know how to find resources. And it's been a big thing. It's actually how I met Kate, and I have bipolar, and that's the story that I share with them.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks.
And next is Mandy. Mandy, did we lose you? Come in, Mandy.
Oh no,
Mandy's voice is down.
it's broken.
I can see her. I can see her pretty face.
Okay, sorry. I was having some mute issues.
That's okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Mandy Gonzalez here. I have kind of a unique background. Used to work with young children. That's actually how I met Kate many moons ago. My own personal journey with mental illness and mental health. And I'm actually a training specialist, and I also teach courses for community college and universities on emotional intelligence, soft skills development. I am a training specialist for Gallo Winery here in the Central Valley of California. I myself have a teenage son who did not do well through COVID, had a depressive episode, and has been struggling with mental health with a father who was injured in Iraq. And so just personal kind of journey and things that I've learned through that. So dealing with it myself and support that I've met along the way. So just glad to be here. I'm glad that we're sharing this topic. Definitely, eye-opening to see such a variety of people here. So I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're so glad you guys are all here to talk about this really important topic. We are going to get into some of the major factors here in a minute. I'm going to say Sean next and take us right into this and do some measured breathing. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with measured breathing. Danielle, do you do that with your students?
So it really depends on what the student is what they're particularly going through, what issues they may be dealing with. Sometimes measured breathing is a great way to handle it. Sometimes it's not. I do breathing, but I do a lot of finger tapping.
Gotcha. A lot of the physical touching.
Yeah.
I use breathing for myself, and I encourage a lot of my students to learn this. Who else would be good for this trait, do you guys think? Sherry's?
You froze up on me there for a second. I didn't get the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry. When we're looking at measured breathing, who do you think would be most benefited from this?
Well, I'm a little biased. I think we all can benefit from it.
Okay. Well, I agree with you. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and teach a little bit of it. And if I get anything wrong, don't anybody hesitate in letting me know. But measured breathing or box breathing is breathing in at an even and then breathing out even and then holding between those even. So you're going to breathe in for an even amount of time, hold for an even amount of time, breathe out for an even amount of time, hold for an even amount of time, and then repeat that. Sherry's? Why? You want to take a stab at that?
Sherry Sedler or Sherry
Either
Center?
one.
I'm letting you take the lead on that.
So repeat the question for me, Kate, because I wasn't.
Why do we do this? What does this help?
It helps regulates our autonomic nervous system.
So I like to take it, hijacking the brain back is how I refer to it, because often when we get that amygdala, which is that flight, fright, or freeze response, and I speak English, I swear, flight, fight, or freeze response, that is triggered by all sorts of things. And this is what helps us take it back, grab that amygdala back into control. And so I would love to have Jessica. Can you lead us in this? Do you feel confident?
In breathing?
Yes. Could you do a box breathing?
I'm not sure. I usually, I don't know what you call it. I usually do an ocean breath.
Okay.
So,
what's that?
Where you're breathing in 4 seconds, and then you're breathing out, and you're breathing out for 6 seconds, but you're pushing as hard as you can. So it kind of sounds, I feel like you might be the one that taught me this.
We may have.
There's a good chance, but the ocean is something that I use myself to, just thinking about it in general helps center me. So to hear it when your eyes are closed and really feel like I'm there does bring me back.
Nice. All right. Well, I asked you to do ocean breathing, and I have a picture of a mountain for our breathing exercise. So do you want to try doing it to a mountain this time?
I'm gonna let you take it, and I'm gonna follow.
That's fine.
Yes,
I'll lead it on the mountain scene.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell my Sean. With our mountain scene now here with us, we're gonna do some box breathing. So we're gonna breathe in for 4. You can shorten this time or lengthen this time to whatever feels comfortable to you. So if a 3-second or a 2-second is more appropriate for your breathing, do that for you. This is to be a tool for you to use to help you center and comfort yourself. So you're going to breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to hold it. 2, 3, 4. Let out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Repeat again. 2, 3, 4. Let it out. 2, 3, 4. Breathe it in. 2, 3. Oh, I missed a hold. I missed a hold. So you can see, hold. Let it out. Just let it out. But you you repeat this process a couple of times, and this helps your brain get back into control. As Dr. Sherry was saying, get that regulation back. And you can do this anytime. Jessica, when do you do your breathing?
This is something that I use most of the time. I'm in my car, honestly, when I need this. It simply calms me. Anytime I'm feeling jittery, I'm not able to push forward with what I'm doing. I have a tattoo of the ocean on my forearm, and it reminds me to breathe.
Nice. So you get that physical touch with your tattoo, and then help it remember to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like those tools, my dear. All right, next slide, Sean. So in the big news today, we get to announce, starting in July, on the 16th, a new 911 number. So if you are in a mental health crisis, you can, instead of dialing 911, dial 988. This is true across the nation. It will take you to a mental health hotline that is done by the Mental Health of America, and they will help provide resources from there. So I thought that's a pretty cool new resource. I know Mandy was talking a little bit about her teenager. One of the biggest tools we were offering right now is this text for mental health. And that number is on the bottom of the screen. It's 741-741. And that number is utilized to text the Mental Health of America as well. And that goes for anything from, oh my God, I'm in the middle of a crisis, to I think I might need something diagnosed. And this is something we're pushing especially for the high schooler kids. So Mandy, this is one I definitely suggest for your little guy. Or not so little guy anymore. Sean, you have to take out your trash. You're welcome. Okay. My PowerPoint just notified me that Sean needed to take out the trash. So, but these are some important information for you guys. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Our chat is very empty right now, so I'm going to go ahead and assume they don't have any.
So I text with my students quite regularly. I find that it's a much better way to communicate, or to at least get them to communicate. So if I call them and they don't answer the phone, or I've tried to get them in my office somehow and they're like super crafty. I mean, nobody really wants to talk about our problems and get to the root of it. It's really hard and painful sometimes. Yeah. So I do a lot of texting at like all hours, and sometimes I'll reply in the middle of the night and sometimes I won't. So definitely, I guess I can share my work phone if anyone's in like desperate need to text and that number doesn't work. We have cell phones that our company actually provides for us so that we can communicate just with students and other staff, which is really great. But I do definitely think it's easier to put it into writing sometimes. It shouldn't stay that way all the time, in my personal opinion. You can't just solve everything over text, but it is a good way to initiate conversations.
Exactly. Start that conversation. Start that hard conversation. Get yourself some tools. And later on, we will resource dump on everybody. I've got 3 pages. We're all so excited. That we'll get into, that has more nationwide and local resources attached to it. So we'll carry on. Look at that. It's a shooting star. So this is to get into the meat of the mental health stuff. We're going to get into some of those facts and get into the averages around mental health and mental illness. So we'll take us into that. I'll do a sound effect. So what is a mental health? It is a spectrum. You can have good days and you can have bad days. I can attest, I can have that same spectrum within one single day. Danielle probably went through that driving home. She probably started off on a glorious mood and then ended in a poor mental health state at the end of her drive home today. So
I have to keep a gratitude list in my head. That's what works for me. I have to do that. I think as Dr. Center, I believe, or Sedler actually was saying about compassion fatigue. So I keep a very big list that I constantly have to tell myself, which I think is important, I think, for everyone, whether we suffer from mental health or from compassion fatigue, is I really don't like the saying, and you know this, Kate, I hate when people say like, it could be worse, because I feel like that is such a horrible thing to say to someone at a bad place. It really turns people away from you. And I know when someone says, you're like, it could always be worse, that doesn't mean this isn't my worst. So I try and keep a list for myself that's really positive. And sometimes I'm grasping and I'm like, thank you that I can breathe. Like sometimes I really have to like grasp for that, like that list. But I definitely, that's how I get through it. But I do think, if anyone feels that they're going to be, at least by our panel, turned away for saying, or someone's going to point out like it could be worse, that's definitely not the case. And
you do have to have little tricks and things ready for you to have a bad day, and that's part about learning about good mental health, is knowing what to do to help yourself. Like you said, you have your gratitude list, you've got a couple tools that you utilize to make your day a better day. And it's about like, when does it turn into more than mental health? When does my bad day turn into an actual diagnosable thing? Dr. Sherry's? Awfully quiet over there.
Well, I was waiting for other Dr. Sherry to come in.
I know. It's hard. I'm letting you take the lead because there's both of us and our names are so close. Go for it. That's fine. Please go.
I'm fine. I have that off. Please feel free.
Well, I'll just move on to the next slide. Which we'll talk about a little bit of how much this affects everybody. So it does affect 1 in 5. And for me, Dr. Sherry Sedler, I'll direct this question at you. When we diagnose somebody, what are we waiting for?
We're looking at duration. We're looking how it impacts different facets of their lives. It's not a quick jump in and say, oh, you must be feeling this. You must have major depressive disorder. It's multifactored, and it is seeing how long it's been going on and how many elements are really playing out in their lives. We don't want to make a quick diagnostic judgment.
And for the other Dr. Sherry, I'll ask you this question. With the little guys, when you're diagnosing, you heard Dr. Sedler say it's not a fast process. Is it faster or slower with the little guys?
I think it's a slow process. I really do a lot of observations before there's any diagnosis or even looking at it. I have a little one that I've been working with all week and going home with tears in my eyes because of the pain that he's experiencing. And of course, we all know we take it home with us and experience the same pain that the little one's experiencing. But no, I think it's a slow process. I think it's really a lot of observations. It's over time. It's over different times of the day, different days of the week, interactions to try to get more clarification as to where they're coming from.
Excellent. For anybody else who's looking for a diagnosis, is this going to be a month-long a year long, 5-year long? Anybody want to talk about that?
I don't know how you put a time frame
You don't
on
really put a time frame, right? Because it could change.
There's a really great book, and well, it's a great book, The Body Keeps the Score, with the misconception of like time heals all wounds. So say you're in a small town. I happen to grow up in Lake Tahoe as well, so I know, and there's a lot of stuff that can happen, or even if you're in a big city, and sometimes you bury it and time doesn't heal all wounds. Time just makes that pain seem less and less and less and less, but it could just be building and building and building. So I believe that there are different answers to the question that you're looking for. Like some people, like Jessica, may have a bipolar disorder. Some people may have experienced trauma and that's been weighing on them for years and we don't know about it. So I think that question has a lot of different answers. So I don't know. I'm not equipped to answer that completely, but maybe one of the Dr. Sherry's probably is. But for me, I think that time makes things just build and build. And so that's where that would come in.
I would side with that. Anybody else?
I'd have to say I'm not definitely at the mental health professional level, but experiencing trauma myself, that book was life-changing, just to put that out there as a resource. Some absolutely incredible resource. But not everybody, seeks out those things. And so I think it's true that, you can go on and your body goes into survival mode, depending on what you're dealing with at the time. But it will rear its ugly head in many different forms. And I think a lot of people learn to survive and to bury it. So sometimes there's people, I've seen people now that were like, oh my gosh, I just finally am at a place in my life where I can, let my guard down and I'm in agony. And it's like they're in their, 40s or 50s and they've never dealt with childhood trauma. So yeah, I don't think, just based off of my experience. And so because of my experience, I look at my child and I've had him in counseling since he was 8 years old and tried to help him. And he still went through, difficult times. So I don't know that, maybe if I didn't know, maybe it'd be different. But I think definitely I can experience myself, we definitely go into survival mode. And so however our body, manifests at a later date, a later time, but The Body Keeps the Score. What an incredible title, because it just doesn't go away. It is always there. And, somehow you just walk around that elephant in the room. I think we've all, probably have experienced that, but highly recommend that book as a resource, Kate. That's one that I read it and then I got it on Audible because I wanted to listen to it again. I've recommended it to so many people. It's such a great resource. Thanks for calling that out. That's a good one.
Thank you for sharing, Danielle. That was a good one. Anybody else?
I just want to say, I know that when we're in crisis or we're really struggling and we go to seek to someone for support and solution, we are in a society for quick fix. I can Google something like in 2 seconds to try to get a solution and figure out what I need to do differently. So I know it's hard to say when I say, well, I want to take an approach. I want to do observations. I want parent input. I want school input. Maybe I'm going to do some screeners and I'm going to build a relationship and I'm going to look at your diet. I'm going to look at how you're sleeping. I'm going to look at how you interact socially. I'm going to look at if there's some trauma. And from someone else who's just eager and dying to get a resolution or some sort of idea of what am I dealing with, I know that's hard to say, well, it's going to take some time. And I think in hindsight, it's because we want to do it and make it fit to meet your needs, to really give you the benefit of what's going on and really try to give it a holistic approach so that you can get some relief. And I know it's hard to wait for that. That's the scary part. Yeah, because we want to feel better. Like, now I came to you, so what's going to happen now? Give me a magic pill. It's like, I don't have a magic pill. I really don't.
I wish it was that easy. I really do. but it's not.
I think it's important to note, though, if you do need a medication and you are prescribed your medication, that it's important to take it, but it also is not going to be a quick fix either. And you have to couple that with everything that Dr. Sedler is saying. It is, and this is a great topic that we're finally bringing up, because before it was like you had to hide this, or you really didn't acknowledge it, but you wouldn't walk around with a broken leg and everyone be like, oh, it's cool, just hide it. Like, you're fine. Like, don't go to the doctor. You're fine. Just brush it under the rug. Like, you wouldn't just like walk around with like your bone sticking out of your leg. So in my opinion, this isn't really any different. You're in agony, or if you're in pain, or it's the same.
Yeah, it affects a lot of us. And to be walking around that broken and hurt and not have it addressed for a long time. Yeah. And there is 1 in 20 adults that have a diagnosis. So, and then 1 in 5 who will experience it each a year, and then 1 in 6 youth. So those numbers tell you that there's quite a bit of us running around with broken legs, as Danielle says. I'm going to tell him next. The annual prevalence, I can speak English, among U.S. adults. Mandy, do you want to take a stab in the dark at what the highest one is? I know you're not cheating and looking.
What was it?
Which is the highest common disorder? I'll give you a hint. Anxiety.
I was literally going to say anxiety. You're giving me anxiety.
I should. It's that what I'm trying. No, yeah, anxiety disorders affect 19.1% of the population in the United States, with an estimated 48 million people. So since I give you anxiety, Mandy, you want to talk to me about your anxiety?
Well, I think people throw that word around a lot. And so people don't take it like, oh, people are just, oh, she just has anxiety. Like, it's just, and I think when you have it, you notice it more in people. I've had to learn over the years how to handle and deal with my anxiety. And I realized that it came from trauma. My anxiety comes from the trauma that I've experienced, the triggers. So you learn about, again, if you have anxiety, if you can learn, kind of how it manifests itself. But it definitely, I think everybody thinks that they have anxiety. People self-diagnose anxiety. I think there's a lot of triggers out there that create anxiety for most people. Even in my children, I see it, they have anxiety, social anxieties, or different things that cause triggers. Definitely in a social media world, a lot of pressure, a lot of peer pressure, things that are out there. But myself, just over the years, I've kind of learned what triggers me. And I think that's helped me sort of figure out, okay, so if you're going into a stressful situation, what are you going to do to prepare yourself, and how are you going to cope? And everybody's talked about like tapping and breathing and different things. My counselor over the years has taught me those. I've actually recently done EMDR, the rapid eye movement. And that has been phenomenal with trauma to help me with some of my things. So that has kind of created a sense of peace in my life. But again, you have to seek those things out. You have to really do the work. And a lot of people, I think, just, it's too painful. It's too much work. So, but that's just me.
I think it speaks to also how many of us are walking around anxious, and the difference between anxiety disorder and anxious, because I can be anxious, but what does a disorder really mean? Like, what does it mean to take it to that level? I'm going to field this at Sedler. Take this, Sedler. and she ran. Now she came back.
This handy dandy book tells you.
I love it.
I was like, wait a minute. This
The book looks very loved.
It's been used quite a bit. I can tell you exactly what the DSM tells me that we need to acknowledge for the criteria to make that diagnosis. But I'm not sure that that's something you would like me to go through right now.
No, but it's more than just being anxious.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. So if I'm walking around anxious a couple of days, I still probably shouldn't be worried that I should be diagnosed. I should be looking for...
Anxiety is telling you something, right? Something's going on. So it's just to be mindful of what is it coming up in the context that it's coming up, and how can I manage or handle it? If it's way too much ahead of me, then it starts impacting other facets of your life where now I'm avoiding people or things or places. You know, we might want to talk about that.
I might want to start addressing it. Exactly. Well, thank you for that. We're going to move on to the major depressive episodes. I can speak English, I promise. Major depressive episodes. So what we would term depression affects 7.8% of the population, which is approximately 19.4 million people. Does this seem surprising to you, Dre to Dre?
No, that doesn't seem surprising to me. I guess actually, yes, a little surprising because I almost thought the number would be even higher.
Why?
Just because of the social climate that we've been in as of recent. I mean, even just in the last 18 months or so, when you talk about how people feel politically, the COVID, the vaccines, the way that there's been a huge divide between which way people lie. I feel like that puts a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression upon people because they feel like all their morals and everything are all being completely judged, no matter which side that they're on. And then when you have our youth more sucked into social media than ever before and their phones, and that feeds them a lot of the same things that would perpetuate all of that. So I talk with people, from ages 8 to 50 constantly because I do all these different events all over the world. And depression and anxiety is something that comes up in conversation a lot. So I actually kind of thought that number was going to be higher.
I honestly think it will be. These are numbers were collected in 2020. So I anticipate to see another climb in that depression, especially given like you talked about, the social and emotional environment we're in. So I do see that happening. Moving us along, PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder affects 3.6% of the population, which is an estimated 9 million people. Anybody want to talk about PTS? Danielle?
Yeah, I think we're going to have that number increase a lot too. Yeah. I think we've had our youth, adults, middle schoolers, high schoolers, elementary schoolers, all kind of be stunted in emotional growth and development in some aspects of one or another through COVID. I think there's a misconception from a lot of people that PTSD only affects soldiers. So I don't think people really realize how much PTSD can affect people who have been through any trauma. And so I'm surprised. I would think it would actually be higher than that as well. Like I said, I think I work a lot with domestic violence survivors and a lot of with my population that I work with as well. It's a lot of kids who are foster youth, or for one reason or another, their high school career got derailed and now they're coming back. And I think a lot of our younger adults or even adults don't realize that maybe they have PTSD or that's what they're suffering from, that situations that need to be worked through. But I'm sure one of the Sherry's is better equipped to handle that. I just know I deal with that a lot with my students who have, for one reason or another, like I said, been derailed. And when they come back, they don't recognize what they've gone through as a trauma, that they would be suffering from PTSD. And I think it's important to also point out that PTSD can be treated. It's definitely not an overnight thing, but it's also not something everyone has to live with forever. And but it does take that work putting in. So, but I think a lot of our students have it.
I could see that. A lot of them experience a lot of stress and trauma. And
Mandy has some comments on that too. I saw that in the chat.
You saw that in the chat?
Yeah. Mandy, didn't you have a couple comments on that?
Oh, yeah, when I was thinking, so my ex-husband, my son's father, did 3 tours and was injured in Iraq, and came home with PTSD every single time, but I didn't really know what it was. And it basically was a marriage ender for us. And just the long-term effects of that. So to Daniel's point, like most people hear that word, they think, oh, well, that's, synonymous with soldiers, with combat. I definitely saw it firsthand. And what they were doing to treat soldiers with Seroquel and some pretty strong medications. My ex-husband had paranoid delusions and night terrors, and you name it, he had everything under the sun. And so experiencing that through him, seeing that through him, what he's been through over the years. And then, I think people sometimes think, oh, well, I'll just, I have PTSD from this. And they just use the word loosely, not really understanding that it is truly a diagnosis, and it's something. And for him, it was a career ender. And it's the word that means I can never do what I did before ever again. And so the seriousness of, combat PTSD and what it did for him, I don't take it lightly at all. So I get kind of perturbed when people will just say like, oh, that just gave me PTSD, and it's like, it's actually very serious. It's actually, a very serious diagnosis. People that have been through trauma, even being in a car accident, you can have PTSD, and I understand that. It is trauma. Trauma is trauma, and, a lot of people have that. So just me personally experiencing that, and my son experiencing that, and seeing his dad when he was younger, when he came back, he was completely different. And, the therapies and the treatments that you have to seek out, because they're not just there, even as a soldier. Like we put him in a Menlo Park trauma center for 3 months, where they did animal therapy, music therapy, art therapy, what is it called? Where they do like exposure therapy, you name it. I had him in every group and everything, but it's lifelong. It's not something that, I think he'll ever recover from. So just my experience with that, and some of my trauma from my childhood and some things, I almost feel guilty when I say, well, I have some trauma, because I feel like his trauma was way worse. But I think it's misunderstood, and I think people have kind of used it loosely, but I think there's definitely an opportunity to teach and educate and make people aware of what it actually is. And you're right, there is treatments, there are things. A lot of what he went through, because he had traumatic brain injury as well, so he had to be on so much medication that, it's taken years to unravel him. And to this day, I think that, he won't do what he needs to do, because in the military, that was, you need to suck it up, pretty much. And so there's that negative connotation, I think, in a lot of arenas. And what we're talking about is, you can't be mentally ill and be a killing machine. So it's definitely destroyed him and ruined, his career and what he set out to do in life. But I think it also brought up, when he was dealing with it, it brought up childhood trauma for him. So it's interesting how a significant event can also trigger what we saw is also triggered some childhood things that he'd never dealt with. So, for instance, an example was he would see dead bodies and he would just move on. He'd be covered in blood for, weeks on end and just move on. And when his brother died when he was younger, his brother had an illness and died at a young age. He went to school the next day. They never dealt with it. So he made a connection from the time he was young. That's how you deal with death, is someone dies and you move on. And so you do that. And like I said before, eventually it'll sneak up. So I have a very unique experience, I guess, with PTSD, seen it from that end. So,
that was a deep share. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
No,
Mandy, you made a comment that I think Dre had said as well, and so I was wondering if one of the Dr. Sherry's could answer. Is it still more prevalent that male population is taught more to suck it up? Is that still sort of where we're at in 2022, or are we moving in a way that it's not as frowned upon for them to seek mental health? Because that seems to be the common thing, like you're saying, especially as a soldier, if you're in sort of those first responder jobs or any job, like you have to be that tough, suck it up, get it together. So are we making any progress, or what suggestions do you guys have that we could use to help our male students or friends? Or
the other Sherry, I'll let you answer because you're the true mental health specialist and therapist, and I deal more with the special needs type of population. So I think that's a good question for you to answer. Deferring again.
What I try to do, because I am in a rural community, right, and it's very traditional and conservative. What I try to work with the teens and and older adults too is we are conditioned to be in the man box, right? And then you add the other context of being in the military and service, and there's other stigmas and other norms and other expectations. And it's like, okay, you can feel feelings outside of this man box and still be in the man and have your manlyhood and still take care of everything you need to do, but it's going to be okay to really identify and express emotions, which would be sadness or fear or anxiety, of all those things. That makes you human. So it's really having that conversation and giving them permission to have the conversation, that all those feelings are expected, and you're entitled to those feelings. And just because you're a man and the conditions that are set in the community or in your society is not necessarily an accurate description of how to be a man.
And for me, being in Iowa at the moment, which is geographically different than Southern California, where I'm raised and trained, I see a real distinct difference with the male population here and the inability to communicate needs and feelings, and even the judicial system and the school system and everything really puts women second place when it comes to the court systems, when it comes to dealing with custody battles. It's a very male dominant world in Iowa. And so hopefully when more people can address mental health needs, that also can change from a geographic perspective.
I think I appreciate what you're saying too, and tethering on the PTSD when we're talking about that maleness, I guess, and being man box. Is, there's that famous study that was done, and take the ACEs test, go through that screening and see if you've had any of this exposure. And it's like, oh, look, this happened to you and it's real. So guess what goes with those emotions with that experience too. And so it's a great entryway to really.
I can't hear you, Kate. Good old technical difficulties. Are any of the Dr. Sherry's, are you certified in EMDR, in rapid eye movement?
I'm not.
You're not?
I am not.
You're not?
I'm not, but I did extensive training with Dr. Bruce Perry for the neurosequential model and actually Vessel Bandicourt. So I have a lot of background in that, but no, we have a lot of practitioners up here that seem to specialize in that. So I'm okay with handing that off if that's
yeah,
easy.
Exactly. You can't do everything, Sherry. Yeah, it's quite an experience.
Yes, I've had it myself because I'm curious, and I have had, of course, in this field and in your life, you do have some traumatic experiences. So absolutely phenomenal. And it's been nice to be able to share that with people because they'd come back to me after we'd collaborate. Like I'd make a referral, they'd do EMDR and they'd still come back to me so we can work on some other things. And they would kind of go, this is kind of trippy. I don't understand this. How does this work?
Yes. It's like magic almost. And it's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I'm moving my eyes and they've got this thing going on. What is that?
Yeah, when my counselor suggested it, she said, go and do some research. I know how you are. You're going to want to know everything about it before, which I did. And I was skeptical, but yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It is.
So.
It is. And some people, they're just not at a place where either they're ready or they're receptive or whatever's going on.
Not for everybody. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. Are you familiar with that, Danielle? With the EMDR?
I am. Well, yes, I'm familiar with it. I hear it's really wonderful. I have my own teen doing it right now from a traumatic event that he experienced. I think it's, just it's another wonderful tool. Like Dr. Sedler was saying that you can use, and it doesn't, you still come back and you may have other issues to work through, but
it's not a quick fix.
That there's so many tools out there if we can keep bringing awareness to them. And but I've heard wonderful things about it, and I think that's
awesome.
I don't have any students who have done it. I work in a downtown LA and in a low, like I said, at Promise in a lower income area. So it's not something that unfortunately we've been able to offer to some of our students at this time, but I do hope that in the near future we will be able to, as we keep bringing more awareness to all the various mental health needs and the various ways that we can process through it. And I think that the misconception is that the only way to get through any issue is just to make an appointment with the counselor, sit on a couch, and talk about them while we take notes. Isn't that like every movie we've all ever seen in our entire life? And there's like a billion other ways to get through it. So, different things to do that I think it's really important. So I think that's cool that you brought that up. And
yeah, I'm just a seeker of knowledge always. I just want to know more. Teach me, let me try it. I'm always putting myself out there. I'm willing to try anything to, if it's going to better myself and make me more aware and knowledgeable,
Jessica, have you ever done anything like EMDR or anything?
I have not done EMDR. I had a boyfriend who did EMDR and had a lot of success with it. He nothing but good things to say about it. But personally, I've not. Just regular counseling and med appointments, because I'm bipolar, lots of med appointments.
Well, I think it's really commendable, Jessica, that you're so open about your struggle, or like that you have a lot of med appointments and that you're managing bipolar. And I think that the more people that are open with that kind of stuff and really normalize the issues that other people are going through, the better off as a society we will be.
I agree. I agree.
Appreciate that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing it out. And it means a lot to me and I mean, I'm sure you as a professional hear thanks all the time, but I get the same thing, tons of messages, thanks for saying it because I felt this way and no one else would say it, and I know that there are many in the group that I administrate that have gone out and gotten help because we talk about it there. So that's a big deal,
I think there's a lot of right now, especially as Dre brought up, a lot of social media and access. And I think that gives our youth or anyone really this more of fear of missing out instead of addressing real issues a lot. Or we have a lot of people that may say mean things behind their keyboard or just not realizing there's other people on the other end. So I think it's really cool that you're using your platform to show that there are real people going through real things, and it's not just about like living your best life all the time because that's not always possible. Although I mean it's really cool to see. I just think.
Well, I'm going to ask her to share more now that I've got somewhat of a vocal whack. We lost sound at our end. But Jessica, we want to have you share a little bit about bipolar because that's the next statistic. I can speak English, I swear. So can you tell me a little bit about your disorder? I don't want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And on my journey for medication to help me not be suicidal, I found that medications were pushing me into mania, which showed that there's a good chance I should be diagnosed with bipolar. Diagnosing me with bipolar before that was hard to do because I don't have bipolar 1. So I've never hit full blown mania or psychosis. I don't stay up for days at a time or anything like that. So it was really hard to decide where to put me. It took years to find medications that work, and it took fighting on my own, showing up at the doctor's office. This isn't working. I need something else. Literally years before I could be okay. And through that, and I guess I'm drilling this because anyone who's wanting to find help, we talked earlier about an easy fix, and it's just not. It's just not. And it's something that'll continually change too with other life events, and different triggers will come out of nowhere there, so it's not something that just happens overnight. It takes a lot of mindfulness, and by the time I had taken so many meds, I didn't know what thoughts were mine anymore. They make you feel different every day when you're on so many different ones. And I didn't even know who I was anymore after it all, So I guess that's my story. That's my bipolar.
Well, you are 2.8% of the population. So you're estimated to be about 7% people, 7 million of you running around. So meaning you are 1 of 7 million. Do you feel like a statistic?
I don't know. It's that statistics are hard for me because like everyone has said, they think most of them should be higher. And I think that's probably true. Bipolar is one that I'm not sure should be higher though. And I would agree with the other ones. And the reason for that is because I think bipolar and borderline personality disorder are both diagnosed too easily. In fact, I saw when I was screaming for someone to please help me everywhere I could go. There's an urgent care here, and she took me in for less than 10 minutes and stamped me with, borderline personality disorder. And, so I would say that bipolar is probably often confused with other things, ADHD being one of the big ones, or ADD. I'm not sure what's proper there anymore, but that's a huge one that I think are swapped.
Yeah. And then Dr. Well, I'm going to jump in and say the bipolar has that 2.8. That borderline personality disorder has a 1.4 occurrence in the population. So even less likely. And you're kind of on the same page I am, because I'm hearing more people talk about borderline personality disorder, but I don't know if I can necessarily say that I know someone who has that diagnosis. Do either of the Dr. Sherrys have any experience with anybody?
Not on that.
Without going too much in depth, you will know when you have someone who has that diagnosis.
That's what I thought. This is one of those ones, right?
They're just, yeah. They need you, then they hate you. They're pretty intense. They're really struggling. And interpersonal relationships are very, very difficult. And if you have a borderline personality person that is with you, you will know within the first hour. In my practice, most they're really struggling. You really need to kind of get a hold of this and a deeper understanding of what's really going on, because that's a pretty significant diagnosis to give someone.
Yeah.
And so we want to be really mindful of that one. But my experience is, I don't know if it's because my experience working with emotionally disturbed children and adults and teens, it's like you just know when they walk in the room, it's like they're really struggling and we really need to help any way we can, because they'll just keep cycling.
Yes.
And then the cocktail for medicines is tricky. And so it's a tough one. I know bipolar 2 is a tough one to really kind of rope in and manage, like you were saying, because a lot of people with bipolar, with certain medication, they feel really good to the point that they want to get off their medication. So I'm fine. Everything's great until we have another cycle. And then you go, that did not work. So now we got to go back to the drawing board. Unlike bipolar, they're quite different. But you know that our medical model has a tendency to kind of want to clump them together.
In that same kind of umbrella, right?
Right. Well, if you're bipolar, we might need to look at borderline. My experience has been, no, they're pretty different. They're pretty different.
They're too different. Well, and obsessive compulsive disorder is the next one that they list. And that one also is a really low occurrence at 1.2% of the population. And that one, I have a little bit of experience with, because we've had some personal friends who were diagnosed with that, as well as I have that too. But I'm not sure about you, Dr. Sherrys. How much experience have you guys seen?
That again, you broke up on me, Kate. I'm sorry.
How much experience are you seeing with obsessive compulsive disorder?
It's been an interesting trajectory I've seen within the last year of people self-diagnosing and saying, I'm OCD. And I'm like, well, what makes you feel that way? Well, you know, I want to have my pantry really much in order. I'm like, well, okay, but I'm not sure that's OCD. Do you have rituals? Do you have some routines? Do you have to have certain things that you can't sleep at night until you tap that door 5 times and then lock it? You know, I mean, there's some other things that are come into play besides being extremely organized or impulsive in certain areas. We have to look at a broader scope of things. But I think social media, and to be honest with you, and I'm not